So, a summary of the nature of God in all of the different sort of ways or parts that we can experience Him in. So, looking at God the Father and Creator, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and the Trinity. So, just as a little bit of a recap for you, if you look at God the Father and Creator, well, what does that help us to understand about God? Well, number one, He created us. Okay, that's easiest written straight away. He's our creator, right? Because He created us. You can link that to Genesis, that sort of thing. Okay, but then you can talk about how the fact that God's our Father, that He loves us. Okay, and you can link that to the idea maybe of sort of Jesus is, it's called the fact He sacrificed Jesus for us, and then sort of the impact of that is that we should sort of reciprocate that love to God. All right, which we can do obviously by following His commands and all that kind of stuff. Okay, pray, worship, etc. If we think of God as being our Father, it shows we can rely on Him. The quote that we looked at before is that He said, "I will be a father to you." He promises to be there for us. Okay. He also guides us like a father. He gave us the 10 Commandments. He gave us rules to follow. Okay. And the impact is that we should look to follow those rules in our lives. And then if we think about God as being our creator, then we're back to those omni words, okay? He's omnipotent. He's able to create the world ex nihilo, all right? So if we think of God as being our creator, it helps us to understand He's all-powerful and that we should worship Him and follow Him, be grateful for what He's done for us, okay? And then the other sort of 3 omnis, you've got the fact He's omnibenevolent, we get from creating the world, this beautiful world for us to follow. You can link that to the idea of design and beauty of nature. Remember now, this is just a recap video. I'm not going into full detail for you. That is available for you online, okay, and in your books. So, the other ones is omnipresent. So God being our creator, His presence is felt throughout the world and within us. Because God breathed life into Adam, breathed life into us, okay? So it helps us to understand that God is all present in the world if you think of Him as being our creator. The next one is omniscient. He created the world ex nihilo, okay? So He's all-knowing. Helps us to understand God's transcendence, if you want. The fact He's greater than us. So there's loads of things you can say there about how thinking of God as our creator and father is the best way to understand God, okay? Now, the next sort of part to look at is Jesus, okay? So, what does Jesus help us to understand about God? Well, number one, it helps us understand so much about what Jesus and God is like, as Jesus is a teacher. He spends all his time teaching what God is like, okay? He gives the teaching, God is love, all right? So you can say that Jesus is the best way to understand God's nature because He tells us directly, okay? He teaches us about it, okay? Which makes it easy for us to sort of follow, etc., etc., okay? He also gives us an example of what God is like because He walked this earth, okay? He was the incarnation, God in human form. Well, that's the best way for us to understand Him is by looking to Jesus, okay, what He did, and there's clear examples of this is what God is like. Following on from that is also you back to the omni words again. Omnibenevolent, you talk about the fact He sacrificed Himself for us, but also omnipotent, and you can link that to the idea of the resurrection, okay? The Holy Spirit, we studied this recently since returning from COVID-19 and when we come back to school. So the 3 main ones I would focus on would be the Holy Spirit helps us to understand that God is omnipotent, and you could say about the fact that Jesus performed miracles through the power of the Holy Spirit, He resurrected through the power of the Holy Spirit, etc., etc., okay? You can also say that the Holy Spirit is omnibenevolent because it's through the power of the Holy Spirit that our sins are forgiven so that we can have that close relationship with God and purify ourselves. That's why we go to confession. The other one is omnipresent. So the Holy Spirit helps us to understand that God is omnipresent. Why? Because the Holy Spirit is present within us through our conscience. You can link the idea that God breathed life into us. That's when He breathed the Holy Spirit into us. And you can also link the idea of St. Paul that we are vessels of the Holy Spirit. And next thing, Holy Spirit was called helps us to understand God because it helps us to understand how God guides us in our lives. And what you can say here is the fact that the Holy Spirit is our conscience within us, okay? And you can sort of link it to that idea there, God breathing life into us. And if we follow our conscience, we understand God better because our actions reflect what He is like and what He wants. Now, the final way in which we can experience or understand God that we've studied is through the Trinity. Now, the Trinity was the last topic we studied, so here's just 3 quick sort of ideas for you. It helps us to understand the omnipotence of God. Why? Because God's 1 and 3, and do you know what? The fact he's able to do that shows that he is greater, okay? It shows that he is greater than human beings, and that he, how powerful that he is, okay? And I said 3, I'm only going to focus with 2, because in that one you can talk about the transcendence of God, which I was going to have as a separate point, but link that with the omnipotence. The final one then is that the Trinity helps us to understand that we can experience God in lots of different ways. And this is because the Trinity teaches us that God is 1 and God is 3. God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So therefore, we can experience God the Father through creation, the Bible, Jesus through the New Testament, his teachings, when people put his teachings into action, and the Holy Spirit from within us, guiding us. Now, for me, that's a really powerful thing there, talking about the Trinity, because it helps to encapsulate all of the different ways that we've learned about God, okay? So, hopefully this video, like I said, is just a summary for you. If you need to know a little bit more detail about some of those points before writing your essay responses, then what I would suggest is going to look at the individual videos that are hyperlinked on where the homework is set. Thank you very much.